have been meaning to talk about this question for a while. This idea of should I write a book or should I create an e-course for what I'm trying to give my customers? And I know you've been thinking about this because of the recent customer requests that you've had, Ed. So, what are your thoughts? Like, if somebody out there is an expert in some area, wants to create some residual income, as you call it, should they start with a book or should they start with an e-course?
Yeah, I mean, when somebody say this, the first thing that comes to my mind is it's functional. Functionally, book lasts longer than probably your life. But course wouldn't. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind. That for a permanent uh, solution to something, it's a book, but for a short-term solution to something, it's an e-course. Now, I think it's worth discussing what could those be and how can they align together to have a long-term solution.
So I would like to add to this conversation one of the things we talk about in the 48-hour book method, which is, of course, we are here to help somebody solve a problem that they already know they have. And that brings to me this concept of understanding your avatar and your avatar's needs before making a call. Now, because we start with the SMIQ, typically you can decide the topic, right? Like you can, or at least the area, and then you learn if that makes sense by having the SMIQ answers. So SMIQ standing for Single Most Important Question Survey, and there's a couple of videos on that, so just check those out. My question would be for somebody who wants to create an e-course or a book, or is unsure whether to create an e-course or a book, is who are you trying to help? What are the main struggles that they have, and why do these struggles matter, i.e. what's their biggest goal? And based on that, then we can have a more deliberate decision on whether an e-course, a book, or something else would be a better option. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, as a rule of thumb, somebody who's in the educational knowledge expertise business and they want to have a scalable business, or even if they don't care about scalable business, they just want to have more time in their life. Um, Usually, and it's historically, like if you go back 100 years ago, people who are in thought leadership business were doing books and seminars. So they were educating people and they were doing books. So e-courses, in a way, is just a digitization of a seminar in a scalable way.
Yeah, so like for those that are not aware of what a seminar is, when you say seminar, I imagine
Workshops.
like an expert standing on stage with a small or a large group and going through some contents and some exercises
Yeah.
during a long period. Could be one day, could be 2 days, could be a week, but it's not just 1 hour, right? That's what you're talking about.
Exactly. So they could last something. I mean, a lot of universities do diploma courses, and they're like short, condensed diploma courses, like 10 days diploma in I don't know, product development by Stanford University. I'm just making up, but technically, that's a seminar. um, and on the other hand, it could be just as small as workshop with you being the facilitator or the creator of the idea that you're teaching to 3 4 people. So it could be just like a workshop which lasts 2 3 hours to a series of workshops or something around a couple of days.
So are you then saying that people who are already hosting seminars should consider first an e-course?
Under most circumstances, like based on what I'm seeing, those people are already considering e-courses in their mind because they're doing it physically, they're just not doing it
So
online. So
it would be almost like a digitization of an already existing piece of content, so the seminar.
yeah, in a way. I mean,
Okay, but then I have a question for you. And I've been selling e-courses for a while, on not related to the 48-hour book, but in my field of expertise. And one of the things that I notice is that actually creating the e-course is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. but it's a lot less work than creating a book. So might that be actually one factor? Because I mean, if you think about an e-course, you basically come up with the exercises. If you have them already, great. You come up with an assignment. If you have those already, great. And then you have an exposition part, right? Like you have a few slides that you go through to explain the content that then the students will use to do the exercises or the assignments. Is that how you look at it? What do you think about that?
No, the more the more I worked with Oikosophy and behind the scenes working with authors, the more I'm convinced that a book, at least in a nonfiction expertise field, a book is a written e-course. So it's no different from an e-course unless you just want to put lots of stories and some boring stuff that doesn't make it into the course, but pun intended. It is a written form. So you can literally create an e-course, and there are lots of diploma courses and other courses out there. Like my wife was involved when I met her. She was studying online from Open University or something, and her entire course, and it was a diploma course, entire course was written with images and graphs. I mean, it was literally copy. Like to me, it looked like somebody just copied the book whole as it is, and there were lessons, and she has to go through the lessons, do the exercises in the end. That's exactly what we do in schools. That's exactly what any course. So to me, I have come to this conclusion that the book is just another way you hold the hand of your reader and pass them through an obstacle or some challenge they are going through in their life.
Yeah, the last part I agree. I don't think, my own experience is that writing a book is a lot more headache than writing an e-course. In fact, I wrote an 8-hour e-course in about like 4 months, and it took me more than a year to write a 150-page book. Obviously, that might be my problem and my approach.
Exactly. I mean, there are lots of books on Amazon teaching people how to publish an ebook today by the end of this day.
Yeah, But what I mean is that the aspect of reusing content, though, is very important. And actually, if you're unsure whether to write a book or create an e-course, what we do here in the 48-hour book method is we say, spend 2 days writing down the first 3 chapters of the book. And from that, decide whether you want to continue to write all the other chapters, and then, or do you want to create an e-course. If you don't want to write the other chapters, the first 3 chapters already act as a lead magnet. They'll bring customers who care about that message to you, and of course you can then talk to them and sell the e-course. But the reuse of content is actually a critical aspect we talk about in the 48-hour book method, which is this idea that when you start writing a book, you're not only writing the book, right? You're writing the book itself, but you're writing social media posts about the content, so snippets from the book as an example. You might be writing content that can be translated to e-course modules. You're writing content that can be translated to conferences, so conference talks in your area of expertise, which is the reason why Jennifer, our avatar, wants to read our book, right? To get invited to speak at conferences. So this aspect is very important. So I would even say that in the extreme, although each case is specific, but in the extreme, whichever you pick, whether it's a course or a book, it doesn't really matter, but because you can always translate the content to one or the other format.
That's from the functional perspective or creational perspective. How do you strategize creation? So if you're personally more inclined to, let's say, an author, if you have an identity that that someday you want to be an author, maybe that could be the starting point. But from the world building perspective, or let's say something that we talked about in the last episode, you can reference, as just Bhaskar, you were talking about the repurpose of content. You can reference the content elsewhere. So for example, in your course, you can reference to a chapter of a book or to a blog that you wrote on your in your blog post and stuff like that. You can link things together so people are within your world going through different theory, or your worldview, acquiring your worldview. On the other hand, from the marketing perspective, it's much easier to go on a stage and say, "Hey, I'm an author," like, or when you're getting invited to speak at conferences, one of the things that we talked about. When you want to get invited to speak at conferences, telling the conference organizers that, hey, you are releasing a book or you're working on a book and you're on a book tour, it's much easier to convince them to come on a stage, to tell them that you have something new, fresh, and exciting to teach their audience than if you say like, hey, I'm releasing a course and I want to promote that course, and that's why I'm coming on a stage. Now, how this whole dynamic work is, ideally your book and your course should be part of the same customer journey, or within the same world with different customer journeys or story maps actually is the right word. I tracked why I picked up the word customer journey. It was from a book that Amazon keep on showing me. And that was
and customer journey
mapping.
is a term,
and I totally forgot.
Exactly.
And it brainwashed me. So I acquired that term because that always was showing Facebook, Amazon was showing on the first page. Anyway, so story mapping. So story maps. So a path of a hero, which is your reader, would be overlapping in, let's say, through your course, through your speech, through some other material that you have, and that overlap would promote your other products. In this case, you go on a stage, you talk about the idea, one big idea of your book, that will promote the book, basically, without even saying that,
and
hey...
not just promote the book, because I think that now we start to think about strategy, right? We haven't talked about this. Books and e-courses fulfill different strategies.
Right.
So, for example, and this is why it's so important to understand your avatar. In the avatar of the 48-hour book method, Jennifer, in her case, her goal is to get invited to speak at conferences. And it's much easier for a conference organizer to pick up a book on Amazon and read it than to go through an e-course. Yeah. In fact, we know, and we talked about it in the previous episode, that the majority of people who purchase an e-course never really complete the e-course. Now, the same is probably true for books, but that's why most books are designed so that you deliver the core message at the start of the book, and then you expound on it. You make it deeper and more insightful as you go through the rest of the book. So I think we also need to talk about strategy and what kind of strategies writing an e-course or writing a book would enable you to execute.
Yeah. So once again, in the context of world building, one thing lead to another. A book should lead to something else that you provide, which is more intimate than the book itself, than what the book can provide. And it could be the same outcome, but given with personal touch or with videos and strategically, you could look at your marketing as just an extension of your book tour. So if you're going with the book route, you have a book, let's say 48-hour book method. We go on stages, we speak about 48-hour book method, how it can help you. People are excited, they sign up to 48-hour book method, they read the 48-hour book method. 48-hour book method tells people that this is a book version of a 48-hour workshop that we created first. Now, some of those people are also interested, like, hey, I need somebody to help me out. I like the idea. I like the plan. I just want somebody to help me out with this. And they become our client. So this leads to us having clients in our consulting, in our coaching.
And the
like
book acts as the second call in the sales process, right? Like the first call would be like a speech at the conference or a presentation to a local meetup or whatever that is. And then people pick up the book and they read through it and they get to that state of saying, okay, I understand this, but I don't want to do it alone. I will ask for help. So that's one strategy, right? Like it's using the book as kind of your salesperson. They're selling your product out there every single day, 365. 24 hours a day. I think that's an important aspect of the options, of the possible strategies that we have. And of course, the book can also serve to sell the e-course.
Exactly. And the example is, it has been used for, I don't know exactly years, but maybe 100 years. You may have heard of a book called Think and Grow Rich, or How to Win Friends and Influence People. All of these books are selling the seminar business that is now a franchisee. So Think and Grow Rich is a franchisee. There are people who are taking licenses to deliver those seminars that were created like 100 years ago. In today's world, in today's businesses, and they're thriving. So people, people read these books and they're like, hey, I need help implementing this, or I need
because
help.
not everybody wants to do it or wants to go it alone, right? Like that's an important aspect. And one of the things we very often say here on the show is that you are, as the author, you're the Yoda to your readers, Luke Skywalker, right? Like you're there to help Luke achieve the goal that they have. You're not there to replace them. You're not there to become the center of attention. You're there to be a secondary character in their own personal hero
exactly
story.
And look at it this from, let's go 2,000 years ago, or let's say 1,500, about religious books. What they do, they do exactly the same. So the religious book, there's the doctrine, and then that doctrine, like somebody wants a greater help, they go to their seminars, their own, they hire their priests to coach them, teach them, and it just creates a whole world building in itself, like the whole ecosystem. But it all starts with the book. All major religions, all major governments have their own or ideologies. Let's say Karl Marx Communist Manifesto, for example. Those ideologies all start with a book.
And that's another strategy, right? Like, how do you start a movement? Let's say you are an expert in an industry, you start to see that there's traction for a certain idea, but the traction is kind of not reaching as many people as you thought they could reach. And of course, you create a written document. It could be a manifesto, it could be a book.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we are talking about books and e-courses here in the context of businesses. So even though Ed mentioned the example of a religion, we could talk about politics and so on, but we are not going to, because this is about helping people solve a problem that they already have, and of course getting paid for that, because everybody, if we would do this more often, there would be even more businesses, and the businesses would be even more helpful and useful to the people around. And that's a very important aspect that I think differentiates the 48-hour book method from many other methods out there. Our goal is not to make you a millionaire, although that might happen, we don't know. Our goal is to make sure that we make you useful to your customers so much that they come back and ask for your help.
Yeah. And in a way that you don't have to prove yourself at every point, like, that I will help you. No. Your book takes care of that problem.
So we talked about what might be some strategies that a book helps implement. How about e-courses, Ed? What are the strategies you see out there that e-courses could help with?
Yeah, so the first thing is buying time. So unless it's like high ticket or high price courses where there's a personal touch involved, and even then, courses are pretty much delivered at scale. So that means you create once, do all the work, whatever you need to do it once. Once you've done it, your major work is done. Then there's a role of sales and marketing and administration, support service, and all those things that almost any business will need anyway. Smaller businesses just need one-man show to be able to handle those. Some of these things can be outsourced and stuff, but that's basic of a business. Other than that, an e-course is pretty much a scalable product that you can deliver at your time, your availability. So for example, to my clients, one example, like Kate is my customer avatar. she is transitioning from running a seminar businesses to an e-course business. Now, in seminar businesses, she's gone for like 10 days in a seminar in a venue. Once she's done, she cannot take a rest and come back and prepare for the next seminar and then prepare for the next campaign. Or even if she take a break, she's like she's stressed out that she cannot take a rest because she should be working on the next project. This doesn't happen on the course. So in the course business, you do the same work like once, everything is recorded. Now you only focus on building systems to get customers constantly. With that, it's just courses delivered.
Yeah, so definitely scaling an already existing business is one of the problems that an e-course could help with. Another one, which kind of a variant of what you just described, is a certification business. Many businesses out there exist to certify others, right? Like, I certify that Ed is professional in this field, right? Yeah. And of course, for that, they need to validate. And the way they validate is through either in-person training or then e-courses. E-courses, of course, scale that business much more than in-person training could do.
Certification scale even further. So certification is like, music. When somebody plays the music, you get paid. Certification is a little bit like that. So converting your teachings into an art in a way that other people are licensed or certified to deliver or work under your nose, and you get a royalty out of it as long as they're working, something like that. So certification, in my way, I'm not talking about those $20 certification that you can get from Udemy. I'm talking about licensing, or if you're a licensing body, or certifications where you take responsibility of the quality of the delivery of the person who's delivering that service. In that case,
To wrap up, I think we've talked about some of the strategies. I think to wrap up, there's also one aspect we talk about in the 48-hour book method book, which is the idea that you don't actually need to decide what's better for you, an e-course or a book. You can actually test it. In fact, testing is one of the core aspects of the 48-hour book method. So one of the things we can do is do a pre-sale. We pre-sell the book, we pre-sell the e-course, and based on the results, we decide which one is the best to invest on and refund the rest. And by the way, you actually say it's a pre-sale. You don't say the book is finished or the course is finished, here you go. You pre-sell it, and you explicitly pre-sell it. Maybe you have one chapter of the book, maybe you have one module of the course, or you just have the list of modules for the course, and you put out a landing page. You create traffic in some ways. Ed talks about that all the time. And then you validate which of the delivery vehicles, an ebook or an e-course, is the most useful for your avatar, for the people you can reach with your message.
Yeah, an example is Cybertruck, Tesla Cybertruck. I mean, he started taking pre-orders in 2019. The factory is not yet set, even as of today.
Today's 2022.
2022, yes. At the time, it's almost two years. But it's expected to start production in 23. Expected. He's not promising anything. But this is the world we live in now, where you give a promise of what you want to help people with, and tell them this is a pre-order, and if there's enough demand, I'll go ahead and put energies in building that. Otherwise, I'll pivot. And that's
and you refund, and that's fine. Like the idea of testing in the market is very powerful, and one that can help you make this decision with concrete data, right? Like you don't need to take a leap of faith. You can just do the things you do best, and then put it out, and based on the feedback that you get, on your customer feedback, then make a decision. And that's a very powerful and very useful strategy to use when making this kind of decisions.
One more quick example. In fact, Apple is using it to predict the demand for their existing products. So whenever Apple launch a new version of their iPhone or anything, they can sell it on the same day, but they don't. It's not because of the supply delays in the supply and stuff. It's a very strategic move. They want to see how many people are making a pre-order right in the beginning, like before they start delivering the device, and then that's how they can adjust the production. So I mean, it goes. This strategy is so powerful, and it works amazingly well in today's world.
Absolutely. Well, that's another episode. We'll see you in the next.
Right.